these are winning moves. This is what it looks like to win multiple championships in the NBA. You have to get moves like that, right?
Well, will Bob Myers join the Suns? That's a question that a lot of Suns fans have been asking, and honestly, a result a lot of them have been asking for. But the question is Bob Myers overrated? Just like we did with the other front office people, we have compiled his best and his worst moves. So let's start off with the best moves from his over decade-long stint there in Golden State. Hiring Steve Kerr. Nailed that one. And if you remember, Steve had a couple of options. I believe it was the Knicks and the Warriors. You're replacing a well-liked coach from Steph Curry's perspective and a successful coach before Kerr. You hire him, you nail that, you go on, and you start the dynasty. Arguably the second greatest second-round pick of all time behind Nikola Jokic in drafting Draymond Green in the second round of the 2012 draft. Mind you, 7th overall in that same draft, Harrison Barnes. Not as great of a value, but still a key part to a very successful team. Of course, signing Kevin Durant in that infamous offseason. The sign and trade for Andre Iguodala, in which he had to trade away some pretty undesirable contracts and 4 picks in order to clear the way for a sign and trade with Andre Iguodala, who ended up being a finals MVP for them. Signing Steph Curry to a $44 million extension after his rookie contract, when his future in his career was on the line due to various ankle injuries and ankle surgeries. However, signing Steph to that contract actually opened the way for them to be able to sign KD in the 2016 offseason by having a lot of cap space and Curry overperforming for the number that he signed them on. And this one, I think some fans will debate on, but turning KD leaving into getting D'Angelo Russell, and then D'Angelo Russell eventually turning into Andrew Wiggins and Jonathan Kuminga. Now, you can argue with Kuminga, which I will, in the worst moves, that there was a better pick there. However, Andrew Wiggins was one of the better players on their finals team, made an all-star game, so you turned Kevin Durant going to another team into an all-star and a key cog to your next championship. How do we feel about the positives? Clearly the best positives that we've seen out of any of these candidates so far.
Yes. I mean,
yes.
I see people saying in the chat, like, he didn't do anything. He did. He won championships. Like, we can't just ignore that. Like, obviously, he wasn't the one that drafted Steph. I think Steph got there 2 years before he took the job. But that injury to Steph and the contract they were able to sign him to as a result is what opened up the door for a dynasty, basically. And the fact that they were able to win championships beyond just the Kevin Durant era, before it and after it, on top of that, that speaks to good drafting, that speaks to good trades and maneuvering. Obviously, Kevin Durant, like, he had his pick of the litter. That was kind of, he chose where he wanted to go. Bob Myers is going to get credit for that, even though we don't know how much actual of an active role he played in that. I would give Draymond probably as much credit as anyone for that. But, like, these are winning moves. This is what it looks like to win multiple championships in the NBA. You have to get moves like that right. So he does deserve credit for, like, drafting Draymond, like you said, one of the greatest second round picks of all time.
The people that are saying that he didn't do this and didn't do that and he's overrated this and that, look at the levels that he's hitting with these decisions that he made. Draymond Green, second round pick, one of the best, arguably the best second round pick in the history of the NBA. That's a role player, one of the most elite level role players ever. And you saw that in him when everyone else said, no, we're good. Literally everybody else said we're good. Kevin Durant, obviously, yes, you have a chance to get him. You have to make sure you're able to make that happen, but yes. And then another one, the biggest one for me, Andre Iguodala.
Yeah.
They don't win any of those championships without Andre Iguodala. He'll say that. Everybody that spent time on that roster, in the front office, on the coaching staff, all admit that. There was a moment where they almost lost him to the Houston Rockets in 2017. Right after they got Chris Paul, they went on the phone and they were like, okay, who are we going to get next? PJ Tucker, Iguodala. Iguodala's on a flight to Houston, ends up getting a call back from Bob Myers and company, and they end up being able to push that deal across the finish line. Little things like that. And then they end up getting another championship that same season. They actually beat the Rockets to get to the finals, and then they go and close the door again after that. You have to have a certain lens that you're looking at the game through, and you have to be able to see things in like 3, 4, 5 times before everyone else to make those decisions and hit on them the ways in which he did. You can call it luck, but when that's your job and you have multiple instances of seeing talent and seeing the future with that within your team context, and drafting to the needs of your head coach as well. That's what you want. Those are the boxes you want checked off.
Saul with a good point in the chat as well. Thanks for joining us, Saul. Says Jordan Poole was also very influential and impactful in that championship run, of course, after the dynasty run. So you could put that in there as well. And I mean, it's not his fault that Draymond punched Poole and then they had to go from there. And I am not going to sit here and tell you that Bob Myers did not do anything or didn't construct one of the greatest dynasties in NBA history, because he did. However, he is not without his faults, and the faults have come a lot more recently than a lot of that success. So I think it's only fair that we show that as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at Bob Myers' worst moves as general manager and president of basketball operations for the Golden State Warriors. Drafting Damian Jones over Malcolm Brogdon, Zubac, and George Niang. The Kelly Oubre Jr. trade, where they only got 1 year for Kelly Oubre of low production and low value in the season where they got bumped out of the play-in. This is the big one. The year where you were down because of a Steph Curry injury, coming off of, hey, we just had a great run. We're trying to revive this, trying to prolong Steph Curry's prime. You waste the 2nd overall pick on James Wiseman. And then you also pick Moses Moody over Trey Murphy III. So a lot of these are draft misses, plus drafting Jonathan Kuminga over Franz Wagner and drafting Jacob Evans over, get this, Jalen Brunson, Gary Trent Jr., Bruce Brown, Jared Vanderbilt, Mitchell Robinson, DeAnthony Melton, Javon Carter, and Devontae Graham. A lot of draft misses. Now, mind you, not a lot of trade misses, really only the Kelly Oubre Jr. trade. So if this is a team in the Phoenix Suns that doesn't want to go full rebuild and go into the draft, maybe that's not a concern. But what comes to mind when you guys see all of the faults, and right before you answer, if you are watching on TV, the party always continues over on GoPHNX.com. But that means it's time for overtime, baby. Everybody's thoughts on the bad that goes along with the Bob Myers good.
I mean, I feel like obviously the recent draft history isn't great there. And I think if you're a Suns fan that's wanting the front office to make changes, it's worth noting that the recent draft history has been more in favor of Jones or Bartelstein or whoever you want to give credit for that too. But at the same time, like, this is minor in terms of the way that they were able to draft when the dynasty was still alive and well, because we didn't even include like Kevon Looney, who was a key contributor, signing Sean Livingston. Like, they were able to make moves on the fringes that didn't even make the cut for the graphic because we narrowed it down to 6 each. So like, I don't get the idea that I understand that GMs are not going to get as much credit for the actual players or the coaches for winning, and that's the way that it is in the NBA. But at the same time, when you win 4 different championships, 1 as your current iteration, 2 with KD, and then another in a totally different context, like, that matters. I would love for the Suns GM to be overrated if that's what overrated looks like.
Sure.
Yeah, for me, it's the foresight. The foresight outweighs the misses that we're assessing right now, especially when those hits result in championships in 3 different roster constructs, almost 3 different eras of NBA basketball in a sense too, to Gerald's point. So for me, yes, they're noteworthy, but noteworthy to an extent. They're not indictments on his successes.
Yeah. Ted says, give Myers a pass on the Wiseman pick. That was the pandemic draft, which I understand that. And well, it was hard to evaluate with not a full college season. And then AJ in the chat, I think, also brings up a good point. It's not really the fact that they drafted Moody and Kuminga. It was that they couldn't find a trade partner for those picks to pair with Steph as a win now prospect, right? You are in the middle of trying to prolong Steph's prime. And like they did this season, where you trade for Jimmy Butler, a win now star, they were actively trying to trade those picks in order to get a player, and they just couldn't pull that off. I think, like you mentioned, Gerald, it's worth noting. I do think that it's on the resume, and it's something that if you hire Bob Myers and the Suns decide to try to get a lot of picks back for KD, you might be looking to flip those picks instead of using them, depending on who else is in the front office.
Elko82 has asked a question in the chat saying, we're just listing the moves made or the moves not made and assessing things off of that. What is he actually bringing? And that's the point that I'm getting to. with the successes, all of those successes show an attention to detail at the specific time of the decisions that are being made in respect to the team that's being built that ultimately leads to winning multiple championships and being the most dominant team since the Chicago Bulls in the mid-90s. That, first of all, is in and of itself says everything. Number two, having a vision for a roster, having an ability to execute an alignment with that vision to put the team in position to be sustainably successful. And then the last big one is a proof of concept. You have a multiple clear recent options that you can choose from where you saw, okay, he did this, that, and the third, and the team got there. He did this, that, and the third, and the team got there again. He did this, that, and the third, and the team got there again. In multiple iterations, multiple contexts of the roster, obviously built around Draymond Green, Steph Curry, and Klay Thompson. But to be able to get it done that many times in multiple iterations, spanning a decade essentially, that's as recent as it gets in terms of seeing someone that's shown to be able to do something and being able to go about executing that multiple ways.
Any final thoughts on Bob Myers?
No. I mean, he summed it up pretty well, honestly.
Well, good stuff. Maybe that just changed your mind. Let us know down in the comments below. Leave a like and make sure you continue to tune into PHNX Suns.